We got the final we all wanted. The CONCACAF Giants, USA, Mexico, the showdown, Sunday night, first ever CONCACAF Nations League final. We're going to break it all down for you here on Stars and Strikes. Let's go.
That's right. We got the fixture that we were all looking for. You know, it looked for a second that we might have an upset from Costa Rica, but we do have Mexico and the United States in the final. CONCACAF Nations League. You know, the history to this game is self-evident. You know, it's going to be a big one just because of how big of rivals these two teams are. But apart from that, this is a huge opportunity for at least us to get some of these new guys some silverware. So I definitely think that this is there for the taking for either side, but it's definitely going to be a story of a group of younger guys with the United States national team, and then, you know, a more experienced professionally Mexico side that we're going to have to look out for, and we're going to have to be on our A game.
I mean, absolutely. With that being said, Mexico did not look great against Costa Rica. Obviously, you mentioned that game went to PKs. I mean, I guess our game almost went to PKs if it weren't for little Jordan Sibachu heroics in the 89th minute. But Mexico, they're vulnerable. I mean, Costa Rica was able to hit them on the counterattack. When Mexico is not in possession of the ball, they are susceptible to being broken down, especially in the counterattack.
And that's something that, you know, we could take advantage of as well. I mean, we traditionally are, you know, have seen ourselves been able to counterattack pretty well, especially with the likes of, you know, with the pace in our team on the wings. We could definitely take a full advantage of that if we're not controlling the center of the midfield, which we likely may not be. So if Mexico is, you know, getting on the front foot and getting control of that midfield with their, you know, quick passes, movement of the ball, this very well may be a game of counterattacks for us. And I think that's where Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, those guys are going to thrive, you know, getting that ball quick up the field and then something easy in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think this is a great matchup. I mean, like you said, players like Pulisic, Gio Reyna, this is what they do best. I mean, you think back to Christian's best moments with Chelsea at times, and even his best moments with the national team, is when he has that ball driving at that back line. And Mexico, like I said, they are not great when they lose possession of the ball. We saw Joel Campbell, Brian Ruiz had a big impact against them. Not the finish was lacking from Costa Rica in that game. However, Mexico, there are holes in that team. Going forward, they also have that hole. They don't have Raul Jimenez right now. Obviously, we know he's one of the better strikers, if not the best striker in all of CONCACAF in terms of goal scoring because of his head injury that he suffered back with Wolves earlier this season. But Chucky Lozano was not in his game. We always hear about how dangerous of a player he is, and we both have our, you know, thoughts on him. But Costa Rica took him out of the game. They were physical with him, and at times they fouled him a lot when he got a little bit of space, and it frustrated the hell out of him. And he was not on his game. You saw him complaining to the referee, whining and yapping all over the place. And that's something I definitely could see us trying to do. Maybe a little Mark McKenzie, Matt Miazga. We all know how Miazga is with against Mexico. Maybe Kellen Acosta, Jackson Ewell, and then hopefully Tyler Adams playing in that 6. But, I mean, right now he's their danger guy. But Costa Rica came with a great game plan, and they executed it perfectly. It just didn't work out for them in PKs.
Yeah, do we think you know, apart from Chucky Lozano, like, I think personally that what sets these two sides apart a lot is the experience in the Mexico side, and maybe that doesn't, you know, give them the edge physically or, you know, athletic. When we talk about athleticism, you know, we have a really athletic team, but, you know, in a final, it's going to come down to you know, having a system and, you know, getting the job done. And that's something that we almost struggled with in our semifinal. It seemed like, you know, we were playing well, we looked good, but we couldn't get the job done against a team who obviously came to play and who obviously had a system and a tactic to hold us back. So, you know, if it wasn't for Jordan Sibachu, you know, the boys who are otherwise looking pretty good the plan would have been foiled. So I think what kind of gives Mexico a good look in this final is just their professionalism and their experience, in big games, because they do have a decent amount of core guys with that, CONCACAF experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and your thoughts go to a guy like Guillermo Ochoa, who ended up being the hero over in PKs and goal. And then you also have guys like Andres Guardado and Hector Herrera, who are still going strong in their midfield. The midfielder that I think was the most troubling for Costa Rica, and the one that I think could cause us the most problems, is actually the young Diego Yanez from Real Betis. He seemed to really have a little bit of drive, always trying to play forward passes, cause issues, play on the front foot against that Costa Rica back line. It didn't really end up working out for him, but a slip up here and there from us, and Yanez can make us pay, and slipping a ball for Lozano or whoever they're starting up top alongside Chucky.
Yeah, how do you think our fullbacks will play against a team with such fast-paced, high-flying wingers like that? It's from Serginho Dest, we've seen on occasion, he could get caught out by players like that. So definitely in a final, that's not something that we want to let happen. And so I think this game is really going to come down to defense as a priority, and then counterattacks if possible to take advantage of how they may be pressing against us.
Yeah, and I think it actually might not be as troubling as it has been maybe for some teams that play more of a conventional back four and conventional wingers, because Mexico have been playing with this back five type thing. They're playing with the three in the midfield with Herrera, Guardado, and I just mentioned Yanez, and then with the two up top. I think where it could cause us issues is in that defense, and depending on whether or not we have Tyler Adams, that's where I think Lozano could thrive. If we don't have that destructor in the middle of the park running all over the place, marking him wherever he goes, being chippy with him, not letting him get a touch in, and keeping him pissed off and angry, and taking him out of the game, he could cause us issues. He's been on good form recently. Our thoughts, I think he's one of the most overrated players in CONCACAF, if I'm being completely honest. Just the way the Mexico fans talk about him. But they could say the same things about us and how we hype up McKennie. But that's neither here nor there. The reality is the guy could cause us issues. And I'm a lot more confident with Tyler Adams playing in that six role, just being that he's able to be all over the pitch, break up play, from sideline to sideline. Without him, we could be in a little bit of trouble, because our other options in that holding midfield role all have a little bit of deficiencies that Tyler Adams seems to, combine and make it better.
Yeah, that brings up the point, as moving into, our preferred 11s. But before we even mention that, we could potentially be looking at a different, a whole different system in general from Greg Berhalter. If assuming that he is wanting to, cool this opposition in the final third, and if they're going to flood our final third with a lot of creative attacking players, maybe we could be looking at a back five ourselves, or maybe we could be looking at a midfield three with Acosta, McKennie, both lying deeper, or no Leggett, maybe even bring in Musa there and have less creativity but more defensive support. So assuming that Greg Berhalter has taken all these things into consideration, we may not see the traditional lineup that we have seen for the past couple games now with Mule, McKennie, and Leggett. Assuming that Adams is out, I think Berhalter is going to want to take some sort of initiative in stopping their attack. So that could either be by means of having a back five, which can be interesting because we haven't played that all that too much, but or we could have a stronger, a more defensive-minded midfield three. So we'll see what he goes with in the event of Tyler Adams not being fit and ready.
I generally don't see us changing the back five. I think right now it kind of picks itself, or at least not a change of system. Maybe Matt Miazga slips in there for Mark McKenzie, but that's the only other one I really see happening, especially with the talents that Mexico have going forward. I don't see him trying to flip Serginho over to the left side and bring in a guy like Reggie Cannon. I think playing the guys in their most comfortable positions is how we're going to get the most out of this back line and that's how we're going to be the most comfortable when Mexico is on the front foot. Anthony Robinson played very well in the last game against Honduras, and I think he deserves to keep his place. Where I do think we need to shift is in the midfield. This is going to be a game where I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth. We're not going to be the team that's controlling possession a lot of the time. And when we are in possession, Mexico is going to press the hell out of us. But I also expect us to do the same thing when Mexico's in possession. And with that, to get the most out of how I think we need to do to beat Mexico, you do need to change that midfield three. I think bringing in Yunus Musa is an absolute no-brainer here. We always talk about his ability to drive forward with the ball, and I think that's going to be huge, especially when we're trying to hit them on the counterattack. But even less so, and even more subtly, that's going to be more effective is his calmness on the ball. You know, you watch Yunus Musa, whenever he collects the ball, if there's a guy on him, if he's being pressed, he doesn't panic, he doesn't rush it. He's still able to, calmly collect the ball and move it on to the next player. And we've seen at times guys like Jackson Yueill, Sebastian Lletget struggle with that. Also, Yunus Musa's positioning defensively to prevent counterattacks is also going to be huge. Sebastian Lletget at times in the last game, when we'd lose possession and he was trying to make those runs, into the channels and stuff, there was a gap there. And a team like Mexico, with the speed and experience that they have on the counterattack going forward, they're going to make us pay for that. Yunus Musa always seems to be in the right spot to stuff out or at least slow down that attack when we do lose possession. And I think that could be huge as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think Musa is, at least from our opinion, the most logical player to be played to asset McKennie in the midfield going into this game. That's where there's going to have to be a stronger defensive mindset. We don't necessarily see that defensive work rate from Sebastian Lletget. I mean, obviously he gets away with a goal and assist here and there, but I don't think this game will be that kind of game. We're going to have to come at this with a bit more of a tactical mindset. And Yunus Musa is that guy that offers more defensively. And, like you mentioned, perfectly in the transition to attack. I think he will have to be that guy that gets us, out of a defensive block and running at the Mexican defense, going the other way. So I think, I also can't see us going with a back five. Just because of how much that would disrupt, what we've been working on. I think the back four that we've been running with for the past game, I think that is probably our best bet and what we're most comfortable with. So if we are not going with a more defensive back five, I think it's going to have to be more defensive, reinforcements in the midfield. So that's going to mean either Acosta starting alongside McKennie, and then either bringing in Yunus Musa as well, as opposed to Sebastian Lletget. But I do not think that this game would be cut out for either Lletget or Jackson Yueill.
So if Tyler Adams is unable to go, because I think we both are in agreement, and I think most U.S. soccer fans and people that just, follow the team and watch all these games closely would understand that Tyler Adams is obviously the better of the three options that we have in this squad in terms of holding midfield role. If he is unable to go, do you think that Greg would prefer to play Jackson Yueill in this game or Kellen Acosta? Because they kind of are almost opposites of players, it seems. Acosta is much more of the defensive disruptor, but his ball distribution isn't as good as a guy like Jackson Yueill, who's the type of guy that's going to try and control the tempo when you're in possession.
Yeah, look, and you mentioned Jackson Yueill controlling the tempo, and I don't think we're going to have all that much of an opportunity to be the one controlling the tempo. I think that's what Mexico prefers to do best, and that's what they're going to look to do. So I don't think Jackson Yueill is going to be the player that we need in this scenario. We're going to need that defensive disruptor to get Mexico out of their tempo and to throw a screw into their plans. So I think this game, assuming Tyler Adams is not going to be able to be fit to play, I think Kellen Acosta would be the ideal fit to play alongside McKennie in a more defensive role, because he's going to be breaking up that, their press and, gearing us out of defense and perhaps pushing the ball up to Yunus Musa, who can flip us out into a counterattack.
Yeah, and the reality is with that, whoever we play there, being Kellen Acosta, McKennie and Musa, or whoever those other two midfielders alongside Acosta, they're going to have to be on their heads, because we know at times Acosta's passing can get wary. And, one of my worries is maybe he has a heavy touch or gives a ball away and frees up Mexico on the counterattack. And like I was talking about Musa before, I think him playing even more so if we are playing Kellen Acosta is crucial because of that defensive acclimate and that ability to slow down play.
Yeah, and you see, I don't see a traditional. I mean, if McKennie and Musa are the ones that are going to slot it in here, I don't think either of them are going to be playing in their traditional, play styles. I think everybody's going to have to be contributing to defense in this game in some way, especially if it means covering for Kellen Acosta in some way. I think our midfield, like we assumed for the last game, I think our midfield is going to have to be, in top form for this game, and they're going to have to be on top of it. And especially if Kellen Acosta is caught lacking, we're going to have to cover for each other in that way, but also use each other's weaknesses and, benefit from each other's strengths. So where Kellen Acosta isn't great at passing distribution, that's where Weston McKennie and that's where Yunus Musa can take over and help transition us into attack.
Yeah, and I think the best thing that we've had, I believe, over the last two games, meaning the Switzerland and the Costa Rican, even going back to previous friendlies, has been that high press. When we press high up the field, we win the ball back and play fast. That's when we've been at our best. And I think that's where we have to play in this game as well. Mexico does that well, but that's also what this team does well. Press those back forward, press Guardado, Herrera, all those guys. Try and make them, force them into a mistake, and then take over the ball and try and play quick. That's where Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent are going to thrive. Maybe find Serginho Dest on an overlap. And that's where Mexico is vulnerable as well. And like I said, I think this is a good matchup for both sides because we both seem to have similar strengths at the moment, but in different parts of the field.
What do you think, that being said, what do you think is going to be the tipping point for either team to get the edge over the other? Do you think Mexico has something that we don't, or do we have something that Mexico does not? I think, like I mentioned, Mexico has a bit more experience in the big games like this, a bit more professionalism, and I think they could see out a tactical game if they were so doing to, hold us back to a certain scoreline, play defense, and play tactically. I don't think under Berhalter we're that kind of team to, play in that way. And I think we're going to want to play our game for the whole time. But what do you think would be the, I guess I can't speak today at all, but what do you think is going to be the X factor for either team to get the edge?
I think the difference is you said it, the X factor. We have our X factor. Mexico does not. I think if Raul Jimenez is in this team, it is a very different game. I think that then we're looking at a much different, even more so we'd have to play in an even more pragmatic way at times. But the reality is we have Christian Pulisic. We have our European champion right now. I think he's going to be the X factor, especially when we try and hit them on the counterattack. When we take over possession of the ball, that's where he's going to thrive. And if I had to pick my man of the match predictor as of right now, I think it has to be Christian Pulisic.
That's bold. I mean, not too bold because we know the capabilities of Christian Pulisic, but in any sense, picking a man of the match before the game is bold. But we didn't see much from Christian Pulisic last game, and I think that's going to frustrate him, especially having a big European win, but also coming back to the national team. We know that this team means a lot to him, and I think winning this trophy tomorrow is going to mean a lot to him, just as winning the biggest trophy in club football, man. It's obviously not as big as a trophy, but he's going to want to be on his top form. I don't think his performance against Honduras was satisfactory, and I think he's going to want to come up big against Mexico, especially against Mexico, because it's our rival. Show Chucky Lozano what's up. Who's got the golden boy of CONCACAF? But
I don't think there's really a question there. Christian, I mean, obviously we're biased, but think about it. One's a European champion. One is almost considered a bust for Napoli and hasn't really done much. Like, what's Chucky won?
Absolutely. Not much. Can't say much.
Nothing.
But that being said, are we for our predicted lineups? I think we are pretty pretty in tune with what we both want. I'm thinking a back four of Dest, Brooks, McKenzie, Robinson, as we've traditionally seen, and I think that's what is most comfortable and works best, with Stefan in goal, of course. But I'm intrigued to see what I've mentioned what I think is going to happen with our midfield. What do you see happening
Well,
for your
like I
predicted
said,
11?
I hope Tyler Adams is in there, and he's going to do everything he possibly can because we know the type of fiery character he is. He's a leader in the dressing room. He got a yellow card in the last game for yelling, so I think Tyler Adams is going to do whatever he can to possibly be in for it. If he is unable to go, I think based on the matchup, you have to go. If we're playing the same midfield three and the same type of tactical setup, I think you have to go with Kellen Acosta just for his ability to cover more ground, because Jackson Ewell, while he is a great distributor of the ball, he's not able to go sideline to sideline and break up play. And then, like we mentioned earlier, I think Yunus Musa has to come into this team. No matter what we're doing with the sixth role, Tyler Adams, whoever, I think Yunus Musa is also going to have a big part to play in this one. Weston McKennie is a no-brainer. And then I think the front three right now is the front three. We haven't even talked about, does Jordan Sibachu get a shot, in terms of coming in after he came off the bench and won. But I think Josh Sargent has to keep his place. The finishing hasn't been there, but everything else has been so good that I think we have to keep the front three going together.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know we talked a little bit about this after the Honduras game. I think Josh Sargent, despite not having that final output, showed a lot of his capabilities in that game, especially with his link-up play within the final third. I think he really stepped up that game, and he's going to have a big game against Mexico, very similar to how he did against Honduras. But we do need to see that finishing touch from him. So I think he does deserve the spot, but he needs to get that output going, is for sure, so that we don't have to count on another 88th minute winner from off the bench.
Something we haven't even discussed yet is the possibility of maybe a little formation change in terms of up front, and moving Christian more centrally. It's something we saw earlier in Christian's United States men's national team career, was him playing through that middle in that number 10, with him not being able to get on the ball as much as we would have liked to against Honduras. Maybe that's in the back of Greg Berhalter's mind. Maybe go with a little 4-2-3-1 type thing, with maybe playing Musa and McKennie as the two holding midfielders, or Acosta, McKennie, something like that. And then maybe bringing in a guy like Tim Weah, or moving Musa out wide to the right, and trying to get the most out of Christian Pulisic, and trying to have him have as much of an impact on that game, and play our best player maybe in the position where we think he could have the most impact on the game, even though it might not be where he's most comfortable, if that makes sense. But he may be more comfortable. We've seen him be great for the national team out wide and through centrally. I think that's part of what makes him, such a valuable player, is his ability to play all over the pitch.
Yeah, and I think that could work. I think it also comes down to the midfield that Greg goes with as well, because we don't want necessarily Musa getting in the way of Pulisic, or vice versa. I think if we're trying to transition into a counterattack, it has to be one or the other almost. And so that we can, if we have Musa getting us out of defense through the midfield and into attack, Pulisic would be one of our runners to distribute to. I think a lot of it comes down to the midfield tactics like Berhalter is going to want to go with. But I do think it would be beneficial in some way if things aren't working with Pulisic down the wing, to see a system change, because like last game, if Pulisic wasn't getting involved enough and we needed something to change, and we didn't see anything change for the entirety of the game. I'd like to see a much more tactically minded Greg Berhalter from this game, seeing how the game is playing out and making changes more accordingly, because last game, he just didn't start making changes until pretty late on in the game, and definitely could have taken advantage of, there was definitely a gray period where what stuff wasn't going on. We could have changed, we could have mixed things up, we could have moved Pulisic inward centrally, and we didn't. There was really no real changes to the tactics or the formation that we were going after against Honduras. So I really hope that Greg looks more at the game, how it's playing out against Mexico, and is willing to make that sort of adjustment if needed.
Yeah, and I think we definitely have the players to flip to that system if we need to do that. Because I mean, we mentioned Timothy Weah. Timothy Weah at times played right back, coming off the bench for Lille this season. Obviously, he's much better going forward as a winger, but he's also comfortable if he has to drop back into front and defend, because there are going to be periods of this game where Mexico is going to be on the front foot and we're going to have to sit back and do a little defending. Um, Yunus Musa also is comfortable playing out wide. We already talked about his defensive acclimates. Gio Reyna will probably have to do it if he's playing on the other side. Whatever we want to do, if we flip to that formation, it's going to have to be the two, whoever the two outside wingers are going to have to drop back and help in defense, so we can allow Christian to stay up forward and try and drift into those pockets of space, almost as like a second striker to Josh Sargent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's you know, I think there's a multitude of different ways we could take on this game, but like I mentioned, I think it should be fluid in the sense that if one thing isn't working, we should have the opportunity, we have the personnel to do it, to switch to something else and make something work, because we might think one thing's going to work on paper, but Mexico might try something else or be playing in a certain way. So I think we have to use the players that we have. We have tons of capabilities in this squad to try different things, and obviously it's not easy to try totally new things in a final, but I'm not saying try something crazy new and out there. I'm saying to take on Mexico in a tactical way, and look at how they're playing, and use our players to the best that we can, because I don't think we did that against Honduras. I think we just kind of stayed stagnant and then just took on that pressure for most of the game until we got lucky with a 88th minute winner. But I really want to see us take it on to Mexico tactically and use our players to the best we can. And that kind of brings up the question as well, if there's always been talk about Greg Berhalter, but if he doesn't go ahead and win this game, can you see questions around him, his career with the national team, what his future would be? This should be an attainable game for us to win. This should be some silverware for us to win. And do you think in any way that this could be a telling point of Greg Berhalter's future with the team?
Absolutely. I mean, it comes to the job. There's pressure. You have to win. Mexico is your biggest rival, is our biggest rival. You can't not compete against Mexico. If we lose against Mexico and it's a close game back and forth, do I think he's going to get fired? No. But if we get blown out of the water with this team that we have, with these players, oh, absolutely, his job should be in question, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's something that we haven't really talked about on the show a lot, because it just hasn't. We've been in good form and everything, but what has been in question is there's been just a lot of frustration with his decision making. So, if this final comes down to a big blowout in Mexico's favor, I think that is definitely, his decision making has been questionable in the past, but it's worked. But this is a final, so I think it comes. It's time to be more judgmental on him if worse comes to worse this game. So, all the pressure is on. It's a big final, and I know. Like we talked about, these players are winners, but we have to see if Greg Berhalter is a winner too. So that being said, we want to hop into our score predictions.
Absolutely. Why don't you start it?
All right. I've been trying my best to be optimistic about this one. I think it's going to be tight though, so I'm going to 2-1 United States win. I think it is going to go to overtime though, and I think that goal is going to come from one of our substitutes off the bench.
Okay, maybe a little Jordan Sebachu hero 2.0 happening. I was actually going to go with the same prediction. We got to start thinking a little bit different, or not, because it seems to work out most of the time. But yeah, I'm also going 2-1. I think both teams score early in this one in the first half, and then we see a little bit of a change of pace maybe in the second half, where maybe Mexico starts in the front foot and we have to do a little bit of defending. And I think we hit them on the counterattack to score that second goal, whether that's in the second half or extra time, whatever, to get that 2-0 victory. I think that we definitely need to get Christian Pulisic involved early. We can't have him dropping so deep and almost alongside our holding midfielders to pick up the ball and just play a pass. We got to feed him early, and I think this is This is one that he's gonna be licking his lips for, and all the players are, because this is what it's about. This is why you become a professional footballer. This is why you play for your country. This is the game that, you know, almost will define your career outside of the World Cup.
Yeah,
USA and Mexico, those are the two dogs in CONCACAF. You know, everybody else seems to have their time when they're up and down. Costa Rica obviously has had a couple really good years. Canada seems to be on a team on the rise. Jamaica, teams like that. But the ever-present are Mexico and the U.S. And you got to get it done against Mexico. That's the end of the road. It's the derby. It's the crosstown, the border, whatever you want to call it. This is the biggest game outside of a World Cup that you have as a United States men's national team player or coach, and there's no doubt about that.
and it's also comes down to there's been so much talk about this United States men's national team with all these new players, this new look that we have for the past couple of years. There's been so much excitement around this team, but this is the opportunity to finally announce that this team is winners and they're ready. They're here to win. I don't care what the trophy is. It could be some Sunday league tournament that they're playing, but it doesn't matter. This is silverware, and it's time that this team starts putting their name out there as a team that's out here to winning silverware. Mexico is doing it almost every other year, but we've got to become a team that other people, apart from just the talk, other countries are hearing us talk about our young team that's looking good, looking fresh. We have all these players playing at Barcelona, at Juventus, at Chelsea, but nothing is really going to make our voices heard other than winning. So this is our chance to finally get that under our belt, something shiny, something gold.
And that's a really good point that you make in terms of bursting onto the world stage and bursting on over Mexico. Fans of El Tri, they've all been a little bit, you can tell that they're a bit worried about this generation of US players. They're almost in denial that we have this great young crop of players that are going to Europe and having success. And at the moment right now, Mexico just doesn't really have that. They've had a little bit of the control. Their last generation, Mexico had the upper hand. This generation, however, they're trying to deny it and keep it as far away and bottle it down as much as possible to try and still think that they're the kings of CONCACAF. But if we want to be the dominant team above Mexico, above Costa Rica, above all those other teams and be the top dogs, you got to win this game. You got to win silverware in CONCACAF, because at the end of the day, it's coming down to USA Mexico. It's going to probably come down to USA Mexico in the Gold Cup.
All right. That being said, make sure to keep your eye out for all the match day content that Stars and Strikes is putting out. And also, let's hope that boys bring home that first piece of silverware in the Greg Berhalter era. It's about time. So let's get it.
Let's go.
We'll talk to you guys soon. All right.
See you guys.
Peace.